back on the clock in the fourth round of a high-stakes DraftKings $555 best ball draft. And myself, Erik Beimfohr, Bernie Kirt, and Rob Coakley started 0 wide receiver. In our first 3 picks, we took Jahmyr Gibbs, Trey McBride, and Josh Allen. And so how do we dig out of this hole at the wide receiver position in rounds 4, 5, and 6? It is a little bit of a bumpy road that we experienced that didn't go quite according to plan, but check out picks 4, 5, and 6 here in this mini-sode, DraftKings 555. All right, Rob, we are back on the clock in round 4 of the DraftKings $555 Monster Millionaire. I think I would say that this went about according to what we just talked about on the last episode, with how we thought the picks in between our third round pick, which of course was Josh Allen. We started Jahmyr Gibbs, Trey McBride, and Josh Allen. As expected, Neil does get Jalen Hurts, kind of pretty much about the guys I think that we would expect to go off the board. Jaden Daniels does fall back, but we discussed about how we kind of thought that might happen, and even if it did, we weren't necessarily going to be interested in Jaden Daniels. So I think just about everything went according to plan, which is hopefully good for us here. But just quickly for the audio listeners, I'll just read off some of the top of the queue. Of course, the aforementioned Jaden Daniels, Ken Walker, DK Metcalf, Terry McLaurin, Jameson Williams. I'm going to skip some of the Alvin Kamaras and such. Rashee Rice, T-Mac, Tet McMillan, George Pickens, Devontae Smith. So we kind of have our pick of the litter really here in this big, wide open tier. Is there anything specifically that you were hoping for that didn't happen, or is this kind of what you were expecting and hoping we'd kind of dive into the wide receivers here?
This was expected and what we're excited for, because a lot of the receivers that went are ones that we wouldn't typically want anyways. I guess like maybe if you were really into JSN, you could say like you'd like for maybe some sort of JSN fall or something like that. I mean, Worthy would have been fun. I like DJ Moore. So if any of those guys fell, sure. But we wanted the Garrett Wilsons, the Mike Evans, the Marvin Harrisons, the Devonta Adams to fall off the board.
Cortland Sutton off the board as well is nice.
Yeah, we just wanted, like, those were our buffers, right? Like we were using them as buffers to get the receivers that we actually really like back to us. And I think that this is actually a hard pick because there's quite a few guys that I do like here that I think are worthy of talking about. And I think it starts, believe it or not, with Terry McLaurin, who has the out tag on him right now. And I think that causes some people to overlook him. But Terry McLaurin, I'm not scared of him missing any time at all. Like I'm fairly confident he'll be out there week 1. He'll be playing in an offense that is going to be concentrated to Terry McLaurin. We've already seen it. We know what they do there. Yes, Debo's there now, but dude, his number 1 is Terry McLaurin. So I think that he's an interesting point to talk about. I think that you could talk about Ted McMillan. You can talk about George Pickens here. I think Rashee Rice is sort of in play, a little bit tougher with the team that we've drafted already with Rashee Rice. But there's so many guys to get here, and we're trying to get 2 out of like 9 of these guys in our next 2 picks, right?
Yep.
So I think that's what I'm looking at.
It's exactly where I was going to kind of jump in. Is I do think it's a fairly wide open debate here. Of course, if you're watching this, Bernie, we're recording this on a Sunday. Bernie a little bit tied up this morning, so we've got his thoughts. But I think all 3 of us generally agree, and we talked about this on the last episode, where, all right, if we're going to ignore, we had ultimately decided either Chase Brown because of the fall or Josh Allen because of the elite quarterback perks. We need to really dive into wide receiver. And this range is why, like everything you just said is why we made that decision, but it's to get 2 of these guys. I would sort of classify Zay Flowers as kind of, I understand a lot of people like Jalen Waddle or even Travis Hunter. I know you're not so much on the Hunter train. But Zay Flowers is kind of like not a backstop, right? But he's the last guy in this where I'm like, if we get two guys before Zay Flowers, now I don't really like DK Metcalf. I don't even as you see, there's a lot of zeros on the board here from my DK Metcalf exposure. I'm light Terry McLaurin, but I've been kind of sitting on the sidelines waiting on when to pounce. So I'm interested in the Terry McLaurin fall here, but it's tough because it is a totally wide open tier. Bernie, I'll just quickly read some of Bernie's, how he broke down like tiers within this tier is how Bernie broke it down. And I tend to agree with this. I think in one tier here amongst all these wide receivers that are available, he went Jamison Williams, George Pickens, and then T-Mac as his kind of top tier. I don't know if those are in order or if that's just a top tier overall of three players. Then another little 3-person tier, which gets to Devontae Smith, Terry McLaurin, and Zay Flowers. And then you get into these other guys, Rashee Rice, DK Metcalf, Jalen Waddle, and Travis Hunter. I would agree that is one big kind of tier. And I tend to agree with those 3 tiers as well, like where I would place those guys. You seem a little bit higher on Terry McLaurin, but do you have any, anything different amongst what Bernie, what I read from Bernie's list?
I would flip Terry McLaurin and Jamison Williams on that list.
Okay.
I think that, and I think it's significant. I think it's a significant flip between McLaurin and Jamison Williams on that list. We're not going to get both, but again, for everything that I said about Terry McLaurin, where was Terry McLaurin has dropped a round and a half essentially over the past, month and a half, just because of stuff that I'm fairly confident is going to get taken care of. And then he'll move back up a little bit because that third round of wide receivers is disgusting. So that's the reason he was getting drafted there in the first place. So I think that his price, it's one of those weird things where I think his price is correct now. It wasn't correct before, but it's going to get overcorrected again, probably. If that makes sense, right?
Yep.
So that's why I'm a little bit more in the Terry McLaurin thing. Like Jamison Williams is fine. It's just I don't know if he's the archetype that I want as our first wide receiver drafted on this particular team.
Makes sense.
Personally. So for me, it would be McLaurin or McMillan in this spot. And I'm hoping that some of the guys that are after them are the ones that get pushed back to us on the next pick. Is the way I would play it.
Perfect timing. Dogs are pounding the table for your segue into who I was going to push, and that was for Tetairoa McMillan. Certainly could it fully admit some recency bias going on with T-Mac, but we're getting a wave of preseason games, obviously, over the course of the last couple of days. Came out 2 drives with Bryce Young. It was the T-Mac show ultimately, and that's what we were, I think, hoping to see. I think what you said about the kind of archetype of player on this like stylistic team, right, with no wide receiver through the first 3 rounds, I think he very much fits that. I think he was I know he was also a guy not going quite as high as Terry McLaurin, but more so tethered to the 3-4 turn as opposed to the 4-5 turn, which is closer to where we are drafting and where he goes now with an ADP of 47. So if we're breaking to, I'm a little bit more worried about Terry McLaurin than you are, and not like he's not going to miss the whole season, but we just see sometimes with these, right? I'm not trying to compare him to Le'Veon Bell, but it was just the first one that came to mind, right? Where like holdouts, and then you're not Brandon Ayuk held out and signed late, and then he's not like, I'm not saying Brandon Ayuk and Terry McLaurin seem to be very different human beings, so I don't want to lump them together. But just like when you miss all of this camp, it does introduce a little bit of extra risk. I also think with the out tag, I know we're in a sharper room in the 5-5-5, but you still see people get scared, right? Rashee Rice, Terry McLaurin, these guys with out tags, we'll see it probably down the road with Jaden Reed, because he's in a boot. Oh no, the guy, he's in a boot 3 weeks away from the season. Like, we're going to see some of that stuff, and it still will happen here, because even as sharp as these players are, that doesn't mean they're not risk averse, right? And I just think kind of pulling all 3 of our different angles here together, everything that you outlined, kind of Bernie's tiers, T-Mac is the guy that really stands out for me, that kind of checks all the boxes, and we're all kind of like, no one has necessarily anything negative to say about him. We might all like JMO a little bit more or less. We might all like Terry a little bit more or less, but he's like the one guy that I think really kind of stands out here. Definitely, I don't think getting back to us amongst the group. I could possibly see Terry getting back. I agree, JMO not getting back. Probably Pickens not getting back, though. It can be a little bit unique with him, but then that could open us up. Like thinking ahead to the next pick was the last thing I was going to go with, is like, I don't have a ton of Calvin Ridley, but if that's the like consolation prize, I'm okay with that on a team like this. And Zay Flowers, again, being like, if we can set up something like a T-Mac and a Zay Flowers as our first 2 wide receivers on this type of team, I think that would be a pretty big win for us.
Yeah, the other thing I would look at, I know I'm like all Terry McLaurin here, but the other way that I would look at this when we're talking about Terry McLaurin is he fits into the point that I was going to make with him is Jaden Daniels is still available. So you can look at this from 2 different perspectives, right? Where if we want Terry McLaurin, we have to take him now, right? Because I think that whoever of these 4 players past us takes Jaden Daniels is going to try to take him with Terry McLaurin. So there's 2 ways to look at this. We can take Terry McLaurin now because we want him, or we can use him as the decoy, right? Where
right.
If we decide that we wanted to go McMillan over him, now 2 of the next 8 picks we can account for. We can account that it's Jaden Daniels, Terry McLaurin. So one of the receivers that we thought was already going to be gone was going to go, and we can guarantee that Jaden Daniels goes off the board, which is a non-wide receiver position.
It's
Kenneth
a really
Walker's
good.
Probably going to go.
I was going to say Ken Walker, DK Metcalf, and then like you said, somebody tries to double tap McDaniels. I just combined Terry and Jaden Daniels into one human being, which would be one hell of an athlete, by the way. But so that's 8, right? We have 8 picks between us. That's 4 guys.
Yeah.
And so that definitely, as you said, gives us a lot better. You know how the DK slappies love Alvin Kamara. Honestly, I would be a little bit shocked if Calvin Ridley doesn't go. We see the board here. Brown Thor 4 just reeks to me of like a Calvin Ridley or a DK Metcalf stylistic drafter with Saquon Barkley, Josh Jacobs, and pulled up Breece Hall all the way up here. Kind of same thing with Bijan McLovin with Bijan, Bucky Irving, and Tyreek Hill. I think he's just taking the top guy by ADP in every pick so far, which would also lend itself to exactly kind of the strategy that you were talking about. So I would lean more towards T-Mac and using the McLaurin Daniels thing as cover for some of these other wide receivers that we would like. But it's not. I think it's a big wide open tier. I guess I would say that probably the deciding factor is that Bernie, who of course is not here, has just a slightly different tier 1 than you do, and I lean more towards that. I might put Terry in that tier, but I think that would be like we'd have like a 1.75 votes to the T-Mac side of things if I had to like put some rough math to it.
If we go back to the draft board too, so like in a vacuum, I'm McLaurin over T-Mac, but if you look at these first 3 drafters, if you scroll up to their first round pick as well, where you see, as you pointed out, the 103 went 3 straight running backs. The 101 has 2 quarterbacks and 1 wide receiver. McLovin has 2 running backs and a wide receiver. So receivers are on the menu for every single one of these teams. So we need to establish a roadblock or 2 here for this, and we need to establish that Jaden Daniels pick for the 102 to the 104, right? Like, so that's where the game theory starts to come in. It's like, yes, I like McLaurin more than I like McMillan by a small amount, but to throw up as many banana peels as we can, and I mean, Jaden Daniels isn't a banana peel, but just to
for us he is, right?
For us he is. Yeah. So like, we need to make sure that Kenneth Walker is on the menu for these guys, where that's probably either going to be Cal or Jake in the 101 that takes Kenneth Walker with one of their 2 picks. Alvin Kamara probably goes to one of those guys as well. And now Jaden Daniels. So 3 out of those 8 picks we're now saying are not wide receivers for sure, hopefully, based on that. So I think all that said, it makes the most sense to go McMillan here rather than Terry McLaurin. Although I generally would have liked like if we were the 102, I probably would have liked McLaurin a lot more than I liked McMillan.
Yeah, I think that's a good call on just a slight little difference between the draft slot. That isn't something that would normally probably come up, and certainly not. I mean, we're going to have like a 15-minute conversation on this with just two of us. So like in a 30-second clock, you may not think about it the same way that we're like fully diagnosing it here. And I think that's a good point. The last thing I was going to mention is if we want to get, as we talked about, we really want / need to get 2 wide receivers amongst this group. I don't think any of us like DK Metcalf, and I think most of us put Calvin Ridley maybe next at the bottom amongst that group. What we do with Rasheed is a whole different ball game. Same thing. Jalen Waddle, I would put closer to Calvin Ridley. So that gives us right J-Mo, T-Mac, Pickens, Terry, Devontae, and Zay that's 6 guys. Yeah. So if we take 1, that leaves 5, which means, as you mentioned, we need cover for 3 more picks, right? To get it all the way back to us, which would be the Daniels and Terry thing. So that removes Terry. So now we only got 4 guys left. And then you have Walker, Metcalf, Kamara. So we could like perfectly thread this needle, but I think it unfortunately doesn't have to be T-Mac, but it probably has to use the Washington guys just to like, because it's still not technically a guarantee, but if we want to give ourselves the best shot of 2 of that group right down to Zay, and not have to have a knockdown drag out about Calvin Ridley versus Jalen Waddle versus Travis Hunter, because I think we all like Zay a little bit better. I think that would be what we have to do.
Yeah, and we might see the Travion Henderson rise help us out a
That's
little
true.
bit here. As much as I would like Travion, he's not going to work for this team, so that rise might help us here as well.
Yeah, as you see, I have 22% Travion Henderson, so I'm very much in on that, but I don't think he's going to fit for this team. Let's go ahead and take T-Mac, and then just super quickly as a recap before we get out of here and head on into round 5, where hopefully this plan doesn't get ruined by the folks at picks 1 through 4. We started with Jahmyr Gibbs at the 105, Trey McBride in the 2nd round, and Josh Allen. So a spike week 0 wide receiver room, but I think it's playing out exactly like, why did we do that? I think you're starting to see, and we'll find out in round 5 if the plan really went kind of how we have talked about it and how we hoped. But so far, so good.
Yeah, rounds 4 and 5 were crucial to this team. So fingers crossed for round 5.
All right, guys, we are back on the clock in our DraftKings $555 Monster Millionaire. We are in the 5th round. We have, of course, taken Jahmyr Gibbs, Trey McBride, Josh Allen, and T-Mac Teteroa McMillan. Our hope, just a quick recap if you did not watch episode 2, the hope was that one of these receivers who just all went off the board in 4 consecutive picks in front of us would fall back to us here in the 5th round. They did not. And so I think we're going to have a fun conversation here in the 5th round. We're also going to make our 6th round selection. So knock out 2 birds here in the 5th and the 6th round. I'll kick it to you, Bernie, first, but I will just say for the audio listeners, after we took T-Mac, Jaden Daniels, DK Metcalf, Terry McLaurin, Chuba Hubbard, Zay Flowers, Devontae Smith, Jameson Williams, George Pickens. And we were particularly sweating the George Pickens pick there. And of course, he does go. And so we are back on the clock. And who is available here? I have a nice lengthy queue here, but at the top of the ADP list, Ken Walker, Alvin Kamara, Rasheed Rice, Calvin Ridley, James Conner, Jalen Waddle, Travion Henderson, et cetera, Travis Hunter. I think we would all agree, given our start of quarterback to elite tight end and Jahmyr Gibbs, we probably need to stay on track at wide receiver here, but I'm open to different ideas. And Bernie, I'm gonna kick it to you first for what the hell do we do now that these assholes just wiped out our entire queue?
Well, that's the problem. Is this almost never happens on DraftKings. I have something like 250 completed DraftKings drafts, and where we're sitting at in the 5th round, the 5th pick, one of Devonta Smith or Zay Flowers, or maybe Pickens slides down, one of them is there 99% of the time. And we just got the 100th turn. And so that's a bummer for us.
Some are saying we are the 1%. So
yes. So if you're like, man, these guys got cute, they're going to end up with T-Mac and some other shitty guy. Yeah, that was not the plan. That's not how it normally goes.
There was a method to the madness. We've done this a lot of times, and this never happened. It's one of the, I promise you this never happens, right? Every time someone says that, it definitely always happens. But I swear this time we're telling the truth. As Rob said, we are the 1% here.
Yeah, like I'm seeing pictures of Zay Flowers, getting to the 6th round on DraftKings. And here he goes at the 501. Now that guy did pull up Lamar, so he did get himself 2 single stacks so far. Maybe we could have foresaw that coming, maybe not. I'm not really guessing there's much going on there, but he had a plan. So good for him. Where I come back to, I think we need to go wide receiver. Ken Walker has a good fall here. I'm not a Ken Walker guy. When I look at it, okay, he goes at 42. We're at 53. He probably should go around 53. So a bunch of people are going to be like, I want to scoop the ADP value. That's 11 picks. It's probably where he should go, if not later. So I'm not feeling the pressing urge. Looking at wide receivers, the guys that really jump out at me are swings. And the swings on this board are Rashee Rice, Jalen Waddle, and Travis Hunter. We need swings, in my opinion, because we have one wide receiver. We're going to end up with a boatload of them, but I want guys who can have large spike weeks. And then hopefully we just get the perfect combination of weeks that all come together.
All right, Rob, what do you think? I will say I am in agreement with everything that Bernie said, but amongst those players that are available, where are you leaning, and or do you disagree with what Bernie was just mentioning?
I don't disagree. Kenneth Walker is definitely the turd in the punch bowl here. He was supposed to be one of the people that was drafted. Yes. I think Cal taking Jaden Daniels was what really threw everything off, because I thought he was one of the people that could have gone running back here to go with his start. There was a potential to go wide receiver running back if he doesn't take Daniels, and he sort of corners himself as well into the wide receiver pick. And we had a double RB and a robust start behind us, and that double quarterback start. So it was a little funky. We still probably felt like we could thread the needle there. That being said, obviously we need to go wide receiver. I'm a Waddle guy. Like, it's not by much over the other players. I like Rice. Ridley's fine for this team. I'm a Jalen Waddle guy. I think that there's a lot of problems down in Miami this year. And the offense might be terrible, but buddy, that defensive secondary is going to be worse. And I don't know if they have an NFL player on the secondary in Miami. It's pretty bad. So I think they are going to have to at least hypothetically throw a lot this year. And Tyreek Hill might be on Mars by then, because he's such a space cadet this year. So I think that's going to be a reliance on Achane and Waddle in that offense. And I think that we might get really good value out of Waddle, but I do like Ridley, and I think Rice is an interesting discussion here as well.
Yeah. I've probably made it pretty well known over the course of the summer, my extreme trepidation for the Miami Dolphins offense. And I'm not, my intent over this entire summer, as you see, I have 2% Jalen Waddle on DraftKings. Part of that is because of what Bernie outlined, that usually we get to this spot where Jalen Waddle generally goes, and there is Zay Flowers or Devontae Smith or George Pickens, right? George Pickens was going much cheaper than that for most of the summer. So he is a little bit of a last man standing. However, on most teams, I have more wide receivers, and then I would like to dip my toes into Travion Henderson and RJ Harvey and such. And so Jalen Waddle has just been a little bit of the kind of odd man out amongst this spot. However, I do think in terms of the things that we need here, upon further reflection, he makes a lot of sense. And I was originally floating behind the scenes Calvin Ridley just as a stay on track type of wide receiver here. He certainly is not going to, in my opinion, win the whole league for us, but he can keep us on track. And then hopefully some of those other wide receivers do win it for us. That is just not my favorite kind of a pick. I mean, you can also see I have 3% Calvin Ridley. So it's a very similar situation for me with him and Jalen Waddle. I will bring up because, and then I'll kick it back to Bernie, because you brought it up originally, again, behind the scenes, that I think for me, Rashee Rice, Travis Hunter, and Jalen Waddle. So let's unless you guys really feel passionately about Calvin Ridley, I think those three guys are where the discussion ultimately lands, because I mean they're good football players. They're going to score fantasy points, just like Calvin Ridley's going to score fantasy points. But there is a home run swing element to all of those guys. Like you mentioned, Tyreek Hill. What the hell is going on? Does Jalen Waddle just bounce back, right? Last year was very bad, but does he bounce back to kind of old Jalen Waddle? He was quite good for 2 seasons in a row before. Last year, he has kind of been the talk of camp. He got a question from one of the reporters, more Tyreek Space Cadet stuff, I guess, was like, have you overtaken Tyreek as the wide receiver 1? Which, what an odd question to ask someone about their teammate. And he danced around it or whatever, but he's getting some very nice reviews at camp. They did lose Jonnu as well, which if Tyreek is not going to step up and take those targets, like they can only check it down to Achane so many times and be a functional offense. So I do think Waddle makes sense. Travis Hunter is the total home run swing with the lowest floor, I guess. Rashee Rice is the guy who I was drafting at the 2-3 turn for most of the summer and is now going where we would be getting him in the 50s. Obviously, the suspension thing has changed the calculus on Rice overall, but Bernie, you did bring him up, and I think if we are going to draft a lot of wide receivers, which we most certainly are given our start here, we can kind of navigate that suspension stuff with Rashee Rice by having a backlog of other wide receivers who are, let's just assume for the sake of the conversation, he gets suspended to start the year rather than dealing with the late season suspension stuff. We'll have a stable of wide receivers that we can hopefully weather the storm, right? No one's going to be on bye when he's suspended, and those kinds of things that I do think he does make quite a bit of sense here.
Yeah. And so you pitched the Calvin Ridley, and I was sitting back and I was thinking about it, and I actually was buying into it because I didn't feel strongly in any direction. So I was just kind of trying to push it off to one of you two guys to pick your choice.
That's what I was doing.
And but I was sitting there thinking about Ridley. Okay, they're running out a whole bunch of scrubs with him here in the preseason. Cam Ward, exciting rookie, sort of. Could Ridley just gobble all of the good targets, all the first reads from Cam Ward, and we just get by with him? Like you said, he's our volume play to keep us in the game until we add more wide receivers later on. So I was actually really getting cool with Ridley in this spot. I was taking him earlier in the summer quite a bit when like pre-draft and stuff. I just felt like there was him and Cam Ward were both discounted. I just felt like there was a really good spot for it. So I was buying into it here because we just got wiped out. But my Rashee Rice pitch really is, and I kind of gave a little bit of it. I didn't give it at all even. And then you guys turned around and got on board with me, is okay. So Rashee Rice has gone 4 to 6 games. If it's at the start of the year, we have all of our other wide receivers, probably 9 other receivers to fill that void. Then we come along on the stretch in the playoffs, and Rashee Rice is by far the most talented wide receiver on the board. So when we get to round 2, 3, and 4, we just got, like you said, Eric, earlier, a 2-3 turn pick here in the 5th round. But that was with the idea maybe he'd start slow. Maybe there'd be a little bit of a suspension already baked in that 2-3 turn, where a lot of us were cool with him in the middle of the 2nd round. So in my eyes, we could add a clear 2nd round pick to our roster if we just weather the round 1 when we have 9 other wide receivers.
What do you think?
Calvin Ridley. I was never into the Calvin Ridley idea because we do need to hit a home run, and Calvin Ridley is a double at best, is what I would say.
I think he can be a double, or a triple because the outfielder bobbled it against the wall or whatever. I think that is within the cards, but does that fit this team? That's debatable.
Yeah. And Bernie said that he's out there running with scrubs, but he's also a scrub. So that's the other problem. So
I don't think people know how old Calvin Ridley is, by the way.
he's
The
old
average
as
person.
shit.
We just talked about that the other day in the Discord, where it's like, you know, people remember him from the Falcons days. Like he played with Julio, who, by the way, has been retired for quite a while. And if you recall, Calvin Ridley then moved to the 1-2 turn when Julio left town, and then like his career fell apart, which seems to happen to 1-2 turn players quite frequently. But he just completely collapsed. Right, left the team for he had dealing with some mental health issues, and then maybe, I don't know if it was mental health, maybe it was mental health because of this, but got suspended for gambling.
Yeah.
Right, he was suspended for gambling, so he essentially missed 2 seasons. And I feel like people thought like we froze him and he didn't age, you know, like Austin Powers or whatever during those times. And it was like, no, he kept aging, guys. Like, he's not this is not a spring chicken anymore. So there is a certain level of risk as well with just, right, compare him to Rice, Waddle, Hunter, etc. I think Ridley looks good. He looks good in the first preseason game. He's probably fine, but there is still just always that systemic risk with a 30-plus-year-old wide receiver on a look. Even if Cam Ward's good, Tyler Lockett and Van Jefferson were the other starting wide receivers in the preseason game. It's not they're not exactly the Chiefs' offense.
Dude, I was playing Calvin Ridley in $100 3-mans like on FanDuel. Right? And my FanDuel account's been locked for like 6 years.
FanDuel was green. FanDuel's primary color was green when you were playing Calvin Ridley over there. Most people don't even know that FanDuel was once upon a time black and green, but it was, I promise.
Yeah. So I just think that he doesn't fit. I like the Rice pick for everything that was said. He's not only a home run hit, this can be a 500-foot long home run. If, you know, this could be the home run of home runs. If we hit it, we're going to have 9 receivers on this team. Most likely we might even have 10. So we can get ourselves to the playoffs. The first 14 weeks is 25% of the season. So he's going to miss a portion of that 25%. We have him when it matters. I think it's probably Rashee Rice.
I think this is an awesome way to play Rashee Rice, honestly, because what you see, and then we'll move on to the 6th round, is the people who start like we mentioned in the very beginning, the very first show, the very first conversation we had when we took Jahmyr Gibbs, you know, and along the way when we took Josh Allen, but like, we're going to build this team in a different way than these other Jahmyr Gibbs teams, especially in this tournament. Well, once you're weak at wide receiver, especially if you were to get locked out like we did here, they will not draft Rashee Rice because they're like, I need wide receiver points and I need them right now. Right. So the Rashee Rice team is like, I feel good at wide receiver. This just feels like a luxury pick to me. Taking it the way that they're taking the approach that we're taking it and trying to survive during that, let's call it, month or so without Rashee Rice. And now, how did we catch up at wide receiver? It was, well, we survived without Rashee Rice. And now we got this, as Bernie said, 2nd round pick in the 5th round. Like, that's how you catch up at wide receiver. We got 20 rounds, not 18, right? So we have a couple extra spots. We took an elite quarterback and an elite tight end. So we have those extra spots available to us. I think it's the exact way that you should play. I would, like, if Pickens is on the board here, we all, I think, run to the podium and take Pickens. But given the fall off that just happened, we got wiped out. I think Rashee Rice is ultimately the click here. So if we all agree there, we'll make that selection and move on into the 6th round. Let me share my other window here really quickly as we pull up round 6, because yes, that was a conversation we had already had, and we had already made Rashee Rice, spoiler alert. But an interesting spot here in the 6th round as well. Really quickly, I'll read off the names that have gone. And I think this has gone mostly according to plan, a pretty sharp room, as you would expect with some of the folks' names that you see in here, Neil and Cal and et cetera. But Ken Walker does go right after us. Unsurprisingly, the full round fall from his ADP. Then the aforementioned Calvin Ridley, Alvin Kamara, Travion Henderson, Waddle, Harvey, Hunter, Connor, Pearsall. The Pearsall steam is very real. I mean, I think it's good and warranted, but DeAndre Swift, Emeka Buka, some more steam. Would have been nice to get one of those guys maybe fall back to us. Deebo Samuel, Tony Pollard, also steam with Tyjae Spears injured. and Stephon Diggs, meaning that leaves us, interestingly, with Sam Laporta falling as well here, but obviously probably not something that we are interested in. You do see, I know that we're not bye week bros, but I don't necessarily want to be taking a double bye week, given that we're trying to survive without Rasheed and survive the regular season, et cetera, et cetera. Jacoby Myers, who I know Rob is going to be pushing for very hard here in the 6th round. David Montgomery, Rome Odunze, Jerry Jeudy, Isaiah Pacheco, Caleb Johnson, Patrick Mahomes, Matthew Golden, Chris Olave, et cetera, Juwan Jennings, another receiver, Addison. If we really want to take on some missed games to start the season early in our wide receiver room. But Rob, we'll go to you first to kick us off with some of your thoughts at this spot.
I think this is a really easy pick for us. We just took our home run swing. I think the guy that has the best pathway to get us early season points and continue to be strong throughout the year here, I like Olave here. Like I think he's the best pick for this team. I'm never going to take Jacoby Myers because I'm not a masochist. And I think Rome Odunze is just completely mispriced overall. I don't even want to even get into the Rome Odunze talk right now. I like Olave. There's other receivers I like here, but I think some of these guys can fall back to us given where they are on the board right now. We just have to get through 8 more picks. I'm not saying that they will, especially in this room lately.
Not that shit again. Someone's listening right now. Someone's listening right now and going, "Oh, are they going to get back to you? Really? You just told us how they did it last time."
Yeah, but I mean, overall, I think Olave looks good. I know the offense isn't going to be great. I think he's going to get peppered with targets. This is full point PPR. I think that we're going to have a lot of huge reception games for Chris Olave to sort of just ride the Saints offense there. It's going to be Kamara. It's going to be Olave, and they're just going to get peppered with targets throughout the year. I like Olave for this team personally.
What do you think, Bernie?
Can you go back to players all?
Yep.
So I think I had a different read on the best pick here. I was thinking that we would just lock in David Montgomery and get all the Lions rushing touchdowns.
Oh my God,
I'm leaving.
This is we had to get a Lions. Would you also like us to take Laporta here when he comes back in the next? And then we should just take all the Lions. Lions go Burr.
But to be real, wide receiver, I would not do Jacoby Myers here. I think all 3 of us feel very similarly upon him. Other than that, you could sell me on anyone from Rome down to Juwan. I'm pretty indifferent in this range. Just what we have set up. There's nothing that's jumping out at me with correlations or anything like that. I'd mix them up if it was my draft rooms. I don't see a huge difference in them. If there was a guy we wanted, maybe play him to come back around. If it was a later ADP or something like that. If we like 2 guys and we want to play the ADP game. But if Rob really likes Olave, I'm cool with that because it is about the same with the other 5 guys for me.
I feel pretty similarly. I don't have a super strong take. I think if it were me by myself, I would probably take Matthew Golden. But that's very close. I have Golden, Olave, and frankly Juwan, though Juwan has an ADP of 82, also has the Q tag. Sharper room. Do they care about that Q tag? Unclear. But his Q tag is a little bit more not concerning. Like I'm not concerned that he's injured, but more concerning to the average drafter because he's not practicing because he wants a new contract. Who doesn't, by the way, nowadays? And if I were a San Francisco 49er, I would be doing absolutely everything to get a new contract before I wouldn't put my fucking cleats on in San Francisco but if I didn't have a contract I was happy with, because that you are going to get hurt if you play for the 49ers. That's what we have learned. I think it's pretty open between agree with you amongst all of these wide receivers. I think Matthew Golden is like the rookie, kind of continued home run swing. I think Chris Olave is the best football player here, probably substantially so the best football player, but also on the worst offense, or give or take the worst offense, however we want to define him. And I'd rather take Jacoby Myers than Jerry Jeudy. So I don't even want to dive into the Jerry Jeudy stuff.
Well, if Jerry Jeudy comes back around, I'm going to pitch him.
God damn it. Okay. Please let the people take Jerry Jeudy between now and then. But so I would call it 1A, 1B between Chris Olave and Matthew Golden. I agree with Rob's sentiment around Olave also falling. Olave was much more expensive than this on DraftKings earlier in the summer. We're getting a nice price. This logic is total bullshit, but I'll use it when it suits our argument. I mean, he's a level of talent that was in the second round last year, right? It's not like Derek Carr is that good of a quarterback. Now, Derek Carr's significantly better than Spencer Rattler and Tyler Shuck and Jake Haener, but that's just the level of talent that Chris Olave is, right? You have to be a certain level of talent to reach that high in fantasy football ADP. Now we're getting a huge discount on him for many reasons, including the quarterback play, including his own concussion history. But they're going to be chasing a lot of points, man, in New Orleans, like Rob said, all season. And if he does not get injured and he does stay healthy, that this is the kind of wide receiver that fits here, right? That fits the Rashee Rice, that fits the fact that our first wide receiver is a rookie. I think T-Mac's going to be great, but he can be that keep us on track with, like, what if, I mean, there is a non-0% chance that Spencer Rattler is better than we think, right? Took a leap from last year or something. And now you're like, okay, maybe Olave is like the third round value. Olave should be where Garrett Wilson is, right? Or where Marvin Harrison is or something like that. That's absolutely in the cards for this season, but we're getting a discount because like nobody wants anything to do with the Saints, even though Olave is a good football player.
Yeah.
And go ahead.
Go ahead. No, go ahead, Barry.
So the one thing with Golden too that isn't here, he doesn't have a Q tag, but Jordan Love's missing the rest of the preseason, getting thumb surgery, I believe it is, or something going on with his left thumb.
Yesterday or today or whatever.
Non-throwing hand though, I think.
Yeah, left hand.
Left hand.
Still.
So that could definitely scare people off Golden, and I'm not worried about it. There's like, he's obviously going to be fine, but we saw what happened last year. Now he did have the lingering ankle injury or through the earliest part of the season, but they just weren't able to get off to a hot start, and they ran the ball a ton through the year. Are we seeing something similar play out? A week ago, I would have slam dunked Matthew Golden all day right here. But there's just these little nuggets on Green Bay that I'm like, oh, just isn't feeling good. So other people might have that and push them back around to us. So if we want to target Golden and Olave, I think Olave first makes sense.
I think so too. I think I'll just add, Rob, before you kick it back to you. There's definitely, I feel maybe even stronger, and I felt strong at the last turn, but I feel fairly strong that there's going to be some form of wide receiver that we do like here. Is it Matthew Golden? Is it Olave that falls back? I can't say which one. But given the fact that all those guys did take right, there's a lot of yellow over here. They have been taking a lot of wide receiver, with there being the, Laporta and Montgomery. And I don't know that they're going to take Caleb Johnson, but,
somebody will take Jacoby Myers.
Jacoby Myers is definitely going to go. Pacheco looked great in the preseason.
Judy will go.
The Chiefs running backs are like just like he's the last man standing. There was word today about is Brashard Smith even going to make the football team? And that's everybody's favorite guy to come in and, wreck shit up in that backfield. And it's like Pacheco might be the last man standing. So he's probably going to steam. He is steaming on, say, underdog and stuff. So I think it's possible that we double tap wide receiver here. So whichever one we think might have a better chance of falling, I do think is probably the one to pass on. And I think Olave just has, the name recognition. I understand he has the Q tag, but the name recognition that, again, he was a second round pick last year, and these guys probably feel a little bit cozier about selecting him than Matthew Golden with a Jordan Love who isn't going to practice until week 1, essentially.
Yeah, I think that Jordan Love news helps us a lot, because I'm honestly not that worried about it at the moment.
Me either, but no.
So I think that could help us. The other thing, we talk about our little tiebreaker levers that we have occasionally that we pull out. We look at his playoff schedule. Golden's at Denver, at Chicago, and then home at Lambeau versus Baltimore. So it's not the greatest, but New Orleans is at home for weeks 15 and 16 in the Dome against Carolina and the Jets. And then they're on the road, but they're on the road in Tennessee for their last game of the season. So like, it's a small thing, but it's not nothing, right? So I kind of like that that playoff schedule that Olave has. And I'm way in on Golden and the Packers wide receivers, as you know, like I'm, wheels up for them. But I think Olave is the pick here because I think we're going to get a receiver that we really like on the way back, and Golden might be that one. There's a few that I like after him anyways. I think leaving bait on the board like Jerry Jeudy and Rome Odunze, people not being Jacoby Myers, like I think this puts us in the best spot. Now, we said this last time at this turn, but I really do think that there's more picks that people are just not going to be able to pass up on here. Laporta, some of the running backs. I don't know if the worthy drafters in front of us, they might end up taking, if they are, no, they're behind us.
No, behind.
But anyway, so I just think that it makes a ton of sense for us to take Olave here personally, but I'm not opposed to Golden.
Only small thing I would add is, what I would question to you guys, is there anything like thinking ahead to the future that you would consider a non-wide receiver? Like, is there absolutely any reason to look at running back? Obviously, we didn't talk about quarterback, tight end, or running back. Is there any reason to consider one of the other positions
at this pick right here?
Yeah.
No.
Demont, the Pacheco, Laporta, Kelsey.
The next pick, maybe.
Yeah, if we get wiped out again at the next pick, possibly.
Yeah, but not here. I think we have to take. I think it is like, because if it wasn't mandatory the last pick, we get a better player, right? Like we get Travion Henderson,
right?
Like I just think that if that was going to be the play to kick it one more time at one of these two picks, it should have been the last pick. So I can't imagine taking anyone but a receiver here.
Yeah, it's a pretty the fall off from the Henderson Harvey tier down to Pacheco, Caleb Johnson, David Montgomery is pretty stark.
Yeah, there's a Pollard line there at this point. So
yeah,
we talk about the wide receiver lines. I think there's a big line with Pollard in these drafts now.
All right. Anything else before I click this Chris Olave button? Nothing inspires more confidence than idiot like Rashee Rice, who got himself suspended, and the walking concussion that is Chris Olave on back-to-back picks when you're behind at wide receiver. But any famous last words before we make the Olave pick?
Well, I bet our team's unique.
Those are the famous last words. Well, at least nobody has this team. Like, yeah, well, there's a fucking reason that nobody has this team.
Well, what I'm going to say about Olave is he's one of the players that I think we actually overcorrected the price based on the concerns, and people are still scared of it. It's like that price is actually baked in, and people are still scared of it. If these concerns weren't there, even with the bad teams, he would still be a third-round pick because the third-round wide receivers suck. They're not good in the third round. Olave would be there. So when we actually appropriately price a wide receiver and we think that there is still upside, because would you be completely shocked if Olave made it back to the third or second round next year?
No,
I wouldn't be. So the fact that people are still concerned to click that button is sort of insane to me. I'm not saying you have to have a heavy overweight stance, but when you appropriately price these players that you're scared of for injury or team situation, and I know that's two on him, but they still got to throw the ball. They still have to play offense. Yep. They still have to throw to somebody. It's probably going to be a heavy workload. We see this with bad teams all the time.
It's why Jerry Jeudy is here. It's why Jerry Jeudy is priced where he is priced right now, because they were bad and had to throw a lot, right?
And they're going to be consolidated.
Yeah, exactly. Brock Bowers caught it behind Trey McBride. Frankly, the Cardinals are not that good. Trey McBride caught a million passes. Like, there's a lot of guys on bad teams that catch a lot of passes. A lot of them are in this range, as a matter of fact. Chris Olave was in a higher range and has kind of tumbled. Like you said, people keep single counting, double counting, triple counting, like all of the flaws of Chris Olave to tumble him down here. He's been a course correction for me specifically lately because of like this range has gotten wiped out, right? This used to be Ibuka and Pearsall and Juwan wasn't fucking holding out, and like you had all of this stuff here that was nice. Well, that's all wiped out, and now it's just him against the Judys and Jacoby Myers and all that of the world. And I think he fits really nice now into this pocket.
Same.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. All right, let's take Chris Olave. And super quick, I'm just going to run down the team so that everybody is aware of where we stand through 6 rounds. Jahmyr Gibbs at the 105, Trey McBride and Josh Allen. Check out the last video for the first 2 videos, of course, where we talked about Jahmyr Gibbs and our overall strategy. But it was quite the excruciating decision, particularly on Josh Allen in the 3rd round. And you're seeing in real time now why it was so excruciating, because of what it can potentially do to you at the wide receiver position. I think we've done as best as we can to kind of recover here. We took Teteroa McMillan in the 4th round, Rashee Rice, of course, in the 5th round, and Chris Olave here in the 6th round. We will be back in probably a couple of days with another video here with our hopefully next couple of selections. Sometimes this goes very quickly and sometimes it takes forever. Some people take the whole clock and some people don't, but we'll probably be back in a couple of days with rounds 7 and 8 here in the DraftKings 555. But for Rob, for Bernie, and for myself, we will see you guys next time.